everyone, my name's Maddy. Welcome back to my YouTube channel, Paralysed with Love. Today, the 10th of October, is World Health Day, organised by the World Health Organization, and this year's focus is making mental health care a reality and accessible for everyone. So I thought that I would talk all about ways that I incorporate self-care and ways to help my mental health into my everyday life. It's become especially important since my physical health has declined. So if you're interested in hearing more, keep on watching. Mental health and wellness is a huge passion for mine. I've been living with PTSD and depression for around 10 years now. I'm very fortunate to live in Australia where we have universal healthcare, and I also have private health insurance, so I've had access to mental health care this whole time, but I know that that's not everyone's reality. I've certainly had better help over these last few years, and I know how hard it can be to find the right care team for you and your personal needs. If this past 18 months and the global pandemic has taught us anything, it's that mental illness can hit anyone at any time. And I think that means that it's especially important for us to talk to each other about everything, share techniques that we use to make ourselves feel better, and to just be really open so that we can all get the care that we need. Managing chronic illness is really hard already. Add in a pandemic and all of these things that have happened over the last 18 months, and it's completely isolating. So let's talk about ways that we can manage that and ways that we can share positive mental health ideas and practices with the people around us. So like I mentioned earlier, I've been struggling with my mental health for about 10 years now. To be totally honest, I ran in the opposite direction for about 4 of those years. I pretended that I was fine and just struggled in private by myself. But over the last 6 years, out of necessity, I've had to switch paths and focus pretty heavily on my mental health. With a lot of help, I've built up a good toolkit that really helps me when my mental health is all over the place. And some of these things I know really help my family, friends, and people that I'm close with as well. Most importantly, when it comes to both mental and physical health, is listening to your body. You know your body best, better than anyone. So if you think or you feel like you need to have a rest, have a rest. If you feel like exercising or catching up with friends would be best for you, do just that. Finding your inner circle of people that you trust is also incredibly important. I don't just mean friends, family, or colleagues, anything where you feel comfortable talking to them and letting them in to whatever level you want. I also mean professionals and care teams, people around you who are going to help you in other ways. It didn't happen overnight for me. I swapped everything from doctors, psychiatrists, psychologists, you name it. I have probably swapped them out in the past. It was when I finally realized that it was okay for me to not gel with someone professionally like that I finally did swap out some people, and it made such a massive difference to me. It doesn't mean that they're a bad doctor or a bad specialist. It might just mean that they're not right for what you need, and that's totally okay. It doesn't make you a bad person for swapping over. Right now, the team that helps me are just incredible, but most importantly, they work for me. I trust them. I stand behind the decisions that they make, and I feel comfortable to ask questions. I feel like they will back me up, and in a lot of situations they have. And it's made such a huge difference to my care, to my mental health, to my physical health. They've all been really important. Being open and honest with my professionals and the people close to me has also made a massive difference. I don't feel scared to kind of open up about what's going on for me, either mentally or physically anymore. I used to feel absolutely terrified about telling someone about what was actually going on in my head. And when I finally kind of realized that they weren't going to judge me, it just mind-blowing. And it's made such a difference. So I can totally recommend opening up as much as you feel comfortable. You don't have to tell the world everything, and you don't have to tell everyone the same everything. You can pick and choose who you tell, and if there's just one person, and if that one person is your psychologist or your dog, that's okay too. Keeping appointments has been a huge one for me. When I used to struggle, the first thing that would kind of drop off was keeping appointments. I would cancel in the day because I would wake up feeling so anxious and I felt like my body couldn't take it. And now I make that a priority to keep appointments. Getting a good night's sleep is so important. We've all been there where you sleep for like 2 hours on a hot summer's night and you can't function the next day. And finding a good sleep routine that works for me has been massive. I did a lot of kind of finding what was best. I find if I kind of minimize the TV that I watch, I go to bed a little bit earlier. And then if I am going to sit on my phone, I put it on like that nighttime mode where you get the different colored screen. I actually don't know which color it is, but it's a different colored screen. You can Google it. I also try to read a book if I'm really struggling, because I often will fall asleep pretty quickly if I'm reading. And another thing that someone told me once was that having like a hot shower or warm bath and then letting your body cool, the cooling of your body actually helps you to sleep. Something about when you're actually in REM sleep, I think it is, your body cools down quite a lot. So it's harder for your body to have a good sleep and fall asleep when it's quite hot, which is why we struggle on a summer's night. Hello everyone, this is Editing Maddy here. I've had a Google and nothing matches what I'm saying. In fact, I think I may have completely made it up. Nothing to do with REM sleep. All that Google's telling me is that if you have a hot shower or hot bath 90 minutes before you go to sleep, it helps to lower your core temperature. So take what I've said with a grain of salt and do what works for you. Peace out. This last tip is one that I always used to find really cool when I could have Milo. It's that a warm Milo at night, especially with dairy milk if you can have it, is really good for sleep. It contains an amino acid called tryptophan, which promotes melatonin, I think it is, which really helps with your sleep. So get a warm Milo at nighttime. It's really handy. I started journaling about 3 years ago now, I think. And when I first started it, it was pretty reluctantly. I was one of those people who used to poo-poo journaling. Poo-poo! And I thought that I would be a real weirdo if I did that. And when I finally started it, it was honestly life-changing and I haven't looked back. I use journaling as a way to get my thoughts out of my head. It doesn't have to be written. Sometimes I do dot points. Sometimes I just write words randomly. Sometimes I write a list and sometimes I write it like I'm speaking. But just getting everything out of my head and onto paper, even if it makes absolutely no sense to anyone reading and including myself, has been so beneficial for me and I could not recommend it more. I use the extra large, I think it is, Moleskine books. I personally like the dot gridded ones because sometimes I do bullet journaling in them as well. And I like how they look all stacked up together. I'm on my 4th now. I'll link them down below. They're my favourite if you're interested. Having a chronic illness or any sort of mental illness can make you feel so isolated and it feels like that's taking over your entire life. It's really important, and it's been really important for me to find something else to focus on, to have a hobby that's outside of my illness. In fact, that's one of the reasons that I started my blog and now YouTube channel. I play guitar and ukulele sometimes. I paint. I've just started doing some clay stuff with my friends, and all of those have been really important for me to have something else during my day that isn't just doctor's appointments and being anxious and all of that. Getting fresh air when you feel cooped up is so important, and especially now during COVID when so many people are in lockdown, there's nothing more important than having even a minute outside. Even on days where I'm stuck in bed or I spend most of the day in bed, I try to spend at least a minute outside. Ideally, I'd be getting a little bit of sun, but I live in Tasmania, so that's not always the case. But even just having fresh air around me and into my lungs is so important, and it's very grounding for me to be outside, and it's always kind of resets my day. Movement has been a hard one for me. A few years ago, before my physical health took it kind of its biggest turn, I was working out twice almost every day, and I loved it. Movement was just a passion, and I struggled for a long time not being able to do that anymore, and I just felt like I was less than and a failure because of that. But I'm slowly getting used to it. I'm definitely not at the point where I feel like I'm completely there. But I am working with a physio and a PT through my physio that I love. Even just the environment of their studio is amazing. Doing yoga, even if that's just stretches, for me is an amazing day. And I feel like I have run a marathon sometimes, but I feel good for having moved. And walking our family dogs is also really important. That is kind of incorporating everything. I get to get in the fresh air. I'm around people who I love and trust. And throughout all of this, I'm also making sure that I listen to my body. Checking in on people around you can feel really good, and it's also really important because we want people around us to check in on us. But you need to make sure that it doesn't diminish your own mental health. One of my psychologists once used the metaphor of being in an aeroplane and when the oxygen masks drop. You're always instructed to put on your own oxygen before you help anyone else with their mask. And the same applies to mental health. If you can't look after someone else because you need to look after yourself, that's okay. Lastly, something that's super important is knowing your worth. You deserve to be happy, and your physical or mental illness does not diminish that worth. That's the end of my second YouTube video. Thanks for staying around, guys. I hope that helped with some ideas on how you can look after your own mental health. And I would love to start a conversation in the comments down below of what helps each of you look after your own mental health as well. So please don't forget to like and subscribe and ring the notification bell. No, seriously, please do consider subscribing. I talk all things chronic illness and how to live a great life despite your circumstances. Thanks, guys.